A billionaire paused at a grave, drawn to the haunting sight of a little girl crying alone, clutching a white rose and staring at the name of a woman he once loved. But what began as a visit spiraled into something more profound when he discovered the girl was hiding a letter written by the dead, a letter meant for him. What he found inside would shatter everything he thought he knew about the girl, the woman buried beneath a marble, and his own past. This little girl wept at her late CEO mom's grave. A billionaire saw her and discovered his mother's secret. If this story gripped you, hit like and comment on your city below. The sun cast long shadows across the silent cemetery, where marble headstones lined the hill like frozen sentinels. Among them stood a small girl, no older than 8 frame, lost in an oversized coat, gripping a single white rose. Her name was Elara. Elara hadn't spoken much since the funeral. Her mother, Diane Whitmore, was the CEO of one of the country's top biotech firms and had died just weeks ago in a car crash. Some called it an accident. Others whispered that influential people wanted her gone. But none of that made sense to Elara. All she knew was her mother kissed her goodbye that morning and never came home since Diane's passing. Elara had lived with her distant aunt in a small, crumbling apartment miles away from the gleaming towers her mother once ruled. Gone were the chauffeurs, the nannies, the bedtime stories read in boardrooms. Between meetings now, she walked to school alone, unnoticed, forgotten. Diane had been powerful in life, but apparently left behind no one willing to fight for her daughter. The will missing the company, quietly taken over questions. Buried, Elara had visited the grave every Sunday, clutching the same white rose her mother once said symbolized truth. She'd wait there, sometimes for hours. Not for answers, really, just to feel close. But on this particular Sunday, someone else was watching. Across the street, a black SUV idled. Inside sat a man in his 60s, eyes fixed on the child through tinted glass. His name was Barrett Langstoner, billionaire investor, real estate tycoon, and, oddly, a man who had once loved Diane Whitmore, long before she became a household name. And though decades had passed since their last meeting, something about the girl, her eyes, her posture, even her silence gnawed at him. She reminded him of someone long gone, and deep inside Barrett sensed something was off, something buried, something connected to both of them. Barrett couldn't shake the image of Elara kneeling beside that grave. All that week, her face followed him from board meetings to elevators, even in his sleep. On a hunch, he asked his assistant to dig into Diane Whitmore's death and estate. What came back made no sense. There was no formal will filed, no trust fund, no custody plan, and Diane's company, once privately held, had been acquired by a conglomerate with offshore ties within days of her death, quietly, without media coverage. Barrett had been in the game too long to call that coincidence. He returned to the grave the following Sunday, this time on foot. Elara was there again, sitting cross-legged with her coat drawn tight. She didn't flinch as he approached, but looked up with solemn curiosity. He didn't speak, only placed a lily beside her rose and stood. In silence, he didn't expect her to respond, but she did. "That's my mummy," she said, pointing to the headstone. "She told me not to trust men in suits." Barrett almost smiled. Diane had always been fire and steel. But now, something else stirred in him. Regret. Questions. He began to visit every week, not to pry, just to listen. And in small fragments, Elara revealed her story. Her mother had been paranoid in the final months, changing passwords, locking doors, and warning Elara not to answer unknown numbers. She even told Elara once, "If something happens to me, don't believe it was an accident." No one took her seriously, and now it was too late. Barrett was shaken. He began to reach out to Diane's former colleagues, lawyers, board members, ex-employees. Most were silent or didn't recall, but a few hinted at something bigger. Diane had uncovered data manipulation in a drug trial the company was about to launch. Billions were at stake. And Diane, she had threatened to go public. As he dug deeper, Barrett found financial trails leading back to the acquisition shell companies, false board minutes, deleted emails. The deeper he went, the more dangerous it became. His emails were flagged. His assistant was followed. A warning call came late one night. "Stop asking questions that don't concern you." Barrett was scared, but not for himself. For Elara, if someone had silenced Diane, what would they do if her daughter's existence became inconvenient? Then, one afternoon, while reading Diane's last archived speech on a non-profit site, he saw it, a phrase, "The truth is never buried, forever." Something clicked. Back at the cemetery, he asked Elara if her mother ever wrote her letters. The girl nodded. "Only one, but she told me never to open it unless I was in danger. Can you show me?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "It's hidden." Barrett's heart pounded. The letter could be the key to everything, but if it was found, it might be the next target. And then, someone else began watching them. The air was heavy with dread when Barrett and Elara stood in the basement of her mother's former townhouse, now padlocked and abandoned. Elara had led him there after school. Clutching her backpack tight, she reached behind the furnace, hands trembling, and pulled out a tin box wrapped in plastic. Inside, a sealed envelope. Barrett opened it carefully, and what he read made his knees weak. It was a letter addressed not to Elara but to him. Barrett, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. I know I was being followed. I tried to protect the truth. And our daughter, yes, our daughter, Ilara is yours. I never told you. I didn't want her caught in our past. But now please protect her and expose them. The documents are on the USB taped beneath this letter. Barrett blinked. His daughter. Suddenly, a sound. The sharp click of a gun being cocked from the shadows. A man emerged, face cold and familiar, one of Diane's former board members. You went too far, Barrett. Barrett stepped in front of Ilara, heart racing. Then finish it. But you won't bury the truth. The man hesitated, just long enough for Ilara to press the silent alarm Diane had once shown her. Sirens wailed in the distance, and for the first time in weeks, Ilara smiled. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The fallout was explosive. Within days of the letter and USB going public, headlines spread like wildfire. Biotech CEO's death no accident. Whistleblower's daughter, saved by secret billionaire father. Investigations were launched. Arrests followed. The company was dismantled. Barrett took temporary custody of Ilara while the courts reviewed Diane's hidden guardianship papers. But their bond had already formed, not as a charity case. As family, Ilara, once a lonely girl in a forgotten apartment, now lived in a home where she was more than protected. She was seen. Barrett gave her more than safety. He gave her back her story. And yet, what stayed with the world wasn't the conspiracy nor the billion-dollar fallout. It was the image of a little girl kneeling beside her mother's grave, unknowingly holding the key to truth, a truth that cost her everything, and revealed everything. This story isn't just about one girl or one company. It's about the silence that often surrounds influential people when they fall in the quiet. Resilience of those left behind. How many stories are buried because no one dares to ask questions? How many Ilaras are out there? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and fresh videos.